If you would have told me last year the sequel to Megamind is going to be worse than the sequel to Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, I would have laughed in your face. Well, who's laughing now? What's up, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey fans? Anyone? Yeah. All right, that guy. Well, today we're talking about the sequel, Pooh 2. Is this movie terrible like the first? Let's discuss it.
How are you feeling?
Good, I think.
Do you recall anything from the session? Focus. What is happening?
Also, if you want to support this video, dropping a like would be awesome. Not wanting to live in the shadows any longer, Pooh, Piglet, Owl, and Tigger take their fight to the town of Ashdown, leaving a bloody trail of death and mayhem in their wake. The film's actually not rated, but if it were to be rated, it would be really hard R. There's violence, gore, sexual things, nudity, a lot of what was in the first movie, just better.
What do you mean by that?
Better. What do you mean better, Austin? Is this movie good? Well, I tweeted out last night as my first official response, it's not terrible. And that, to me, is shocking. The trajectory of this franchise is going up. Because the first movie, it made a lasting impression on myself and so many other people, aka we saw it, and we almost threw up in our seats. Projectile vomited, leaving the theater. And you watch the first one, you're like, it's such a lazy idea. Taking this IP, turning it into a poorly written, and I mean really poorly written slasher. What they do in the first Winnie the Pooh, nothing about that movie was impressive. And I get it. They were on a very small budget, like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. That's, you think about it, there were a few things in that movie that were somewhat impressive, but when a script is just so bad, right? And it's like, oh, they had budget restraints, Austin. Really, yeah, those were some issues in the film, but not my biggest issue. My biggest issue was the script and how poor it was, and how you have this idea you could take Christopher Robin as a character and expand on the lore, and they do in the first 3 to 4 minutes of the film, and after that, the group of girls that we follow around, the most annoying group of characters in a horror movie of all time, it was, why am I repeating myself? You've seen that review. And so yeah, the sequel, it's not terrible, because they took what they did in the first movie, and now there's a bigger budget. More of an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to make this at least look better. Visually, competent cinematography, really good-looking creatures. Pooh in the first movie looked like Pooh.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah, it's just a guy walking around in a Winnie the Pooh mask. That's what it was. In this film, they look like creatures. The makeup, the production design, everything about the visuals and the prosthetics on that level, they look so much better. And Pooh is walking around haunting, and I'm actually scared. I'm like, this is a horror slasher figure that feels modern, looks fantastic, but the way they utilize practical effects in this movie, I'm going to give it a genuine, positive, glowing review, at least that aspect of the movie. Looked really good. The score, the sound design, the way these fairy tale characters, each one of them, they have their own trait. Now, it's an obvious, evident trait. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But they all stand out in their own way, in the way that they're hunting down people. And at the beginning of the film, those who do believe Christopher Robin and go into the 100-acre woods to hunt down these characters, and then they get approached by these fairy tale characters. That was scary. I'm sitting here going, listen, it's like a B movie. It's a horror B movie, but it's actually providing some nice thrills, and I'm really impressed.
Say what?
We have the same director and writer this time around, but we're adding in someone like a Matt Leslie who did Summer of '84 and bringing a different perspective, almost a fresh perspective on these characters and of what this world was really supposed to be in the first one, but fell completely flat. It doesn't fall completely flat in this sequel. They elevate the already interesting idea conceptually of what this was. Now, is it a lazy idea? Yeah, I still stand by that, and I still think there are really lazy aspects to this movie, but at least elevating that in this sequel and bringing some more standout horror slasher sequences, well, that was the right idea. One in particular, a neon nightclub sequence where you can still tell that there are budgetary restraints, but the way that they go around that, and there's a creative spin on some of those kills, and then we see the other ones just, you know, heads coming off left and right. They use the trope of heads coming off a little too often in this film, to the point to where it started to feel repetitive, but at least That scene in particular, the neon John Wick-esque dance scene, I'm like, yeah, they went around the budget and did some cool creative things, and I liked it. Visually, I liked it. Also, Scott Chambers, the guy who plays Christopher Robin this time around. See, this movie, it's like a soft reboot, almost. I mean, we have the established story from the first, and in this specific film, there is a film. There's a film within the film. It starts to get meta. It's kind of like Scream. But they do the thing where they're watching the movie and they're like, hey, they made a bad movie about what happened to you, Christopher Robin. But you're actually watching the first movie, which in our world is a bad movie. So I'm like, oh, that's creative. Now, did they expand on the meta-ness to the level that I thought they could with this film? Not necessarily, but I appreciated that scene. And there's a cameo around that point that made me smile. And I immediately texted someone about it. If you've seen it, you know who that was. There's also an attempt to actually inject some interesting lore. It's not just mindless kills for the sake of doing it like it was in the first movie, just executed terribly. Now, there's something surrounding Christopher Robin and these creatures and what happened when he was younger and his family is involved. And they're, it's not the most well-rounded thing I've ever seen. And eventually they kind of lose the point. And there are a couple of side plots here and there that just took up way too much time, but the idea that they're trying to give us some lore in preparation for the Poohniverse, because we're getting the Poohniverse. Evil Pinocchio, evil Bambi, Sleeping Beauty, but she's not beautiful. Before the movie starts, they give you this whole spiel as to what it's going to be, and I'm sitting back going, I don't want any of this. I hate this idea. But once this movie ended, I'm like, yeah, I guess I could see it. It still feels a little too early for that, a little too cheap for that, but okay. I'm at least not going to be miserable after watching this movie. And that's the thing. If you're a fan of B-movie slashers, not B-movie, B-movie. If you like that sort of thing and you can overlook some clear problems with the script that I'm about to get into, then I think you're going to have some fun with this. I think there's an entertainment factor here that was not present. Didn't exist with the first movie. I saw some people say, Austin, wasn't it so bad it was good? No. He's got a point. Let's get into the issues, because there are some missed opportunities that actually prevented this movie from being good. I don't think this movie is good. Do I think it's entertaining? Yeah, I kind of do. Do I think it's way better than their first one? Yeah. But the script is still tonally inconsistent. It is way more meta. It is way more aware of the type of film we all wanted in the first place, and now you have the opportunity to make fun of yourself what you did before. They're doing that. They're utilizing that. That is awesome. But there are other scenes and sequences where they are trying to do this thing called acting, but really Shakespearean acting. Not really, it's just conversations between characters, but I found it to just kind of be a slog to get through. It's like, man, you have all of these cool things over here. Where are our creatures at in this moment in time? Instead of just being in the midst of this conversation that feels like it's lasting 10, 15 minutes long. Why are we spending so much time over here? And these are the moments where they're trying to build up lore. And maybe if you would have focused more on Christopher Robin's family, that would have been cool. But there's all these side players. And I get it. You've got to set up the opportunity for our fairy tale creatures to kill a bunch of people we don't care about. But why spend so much time on those scenes and sequences when you can just say, hey, here's some people, they're going to die, and we kill him? Because I did not like the writing in those instances. It was frankly just so cliche. And Scott Chambers, way better actor than the last guy. And we're actually getting some Christopher Robin lore. They're trying to do what I thought they should have done in the first place. Okay. But then it starts to make that mistake that all movies like this make. It starts to get overly convoluted, and we're introduced to character after character and the guy behind it and the people involved and the people that don't matter, but they're there anyway. And then it starts to become this web of, well, convolutedness when it didn't need to be that, when we could have stuck with the simplicity and not the simplicity of the first, the simplicity of what you're doing the other 40% of this film, which is fun, entertaining, showcasing the prosthetics, the cool effects. There are times where CGI visual effects come into play in this film, and compared to the prosthetics, they don't look good. I think of Tigger, he looks great, but there's the CGI tail, and the tail's just flopping around, and you're like, that looks really bad. And Tigger doesn't do any of the things that we know from Tigger. He doesn't go, hoo-hoo-hoo. Is that what he does? Doesn't have his catchphrases or bounce on his tail. He just runs around like, well, Freddy Krueger, but the one in Rick and Morty.
You can run, but you can't hide, bitch.
And each character in this movie is someone that we know in other horror films. One is Michael Myers, one's Freddy Krueger, one eventually becomes Leatherface, and I'm like, yeah, I see what you're trying to do, and that's interesting. I liked Owl as well. Owl had some things to say. I'm like, that's stupid, but it's fun stupid. It's like B-movie slasher fun stupid. That's when this movie was working. But it still has that shtick of the first one of like, hey, what we're doing here, it is lazy. And I'll acknowledge it's lazy. But there is at least an attempt and a showcase of passion in this film that I did not even remotely gather or even come close to get in the first movie. I'm stumbling over my words.
Today, Junior?
We're inevitably getting a third one. When they do that, I hope they don't try to implement as much drama next time, character drama and relationships and all of those things that some movies do well. This one doesn't. They just don't know how to write these characters. That's fine. But when they tackle the lore of it all and we get those exciting slasher scenes, that's when this movie works. It thrives in those moments. I never said anything close about the first film. So again, major improvement. We're getting better. We still have some work to do. Before I give you my number, leave your thoughts below. Did you like the first or the second more? Why did you like the first, if you did? And dropping a thumbs up would help this video out a ton. While it is unable to overcome certain issues that carry over from the first, this sequel exceeds the original in almost every way. The bigger budget allows some of these effects to shine, and it heavily leans into the fun slasher side of it all. Unfortunately, the script inconsistencies stop the film from reaching its full potential, as it still makes similarly lazy decisions. So, not terrible, not very good, but hey, we're doing better than we were, what was it, 2 years ago? Because that was rough. And again, I can't believe I enjoyed this more than Megamind 2. I'm flabbergasted. I love that word. Thanks for watching. I have more reviews next to my head. Godzilla and Kong tomorrow.